Hey friends, I'm Tina Cecila, and tonight we're here for the encore class called Peace Over Pandemonium. And tonight we're going to be hearing from several people who have dealt with some emotional things and they're ready to share with us. So without wasting any of your time, I'm going to turn the call over to Alyssa Francis. Alyssa, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi. So I almost asked you to just like play the recording of what I said earlier today because I'm nervous again. It's such a heavy topic, and especially seeing like all the comments of everyone who's dealing with similar struggles. It just feels there's such like a big responsibility by sharing a story like this, right? Because I don't want to like point someone in the wrong direction or, anyway, all that to say, I'm sharing my story because it's my story. It's my experience, my opinions, and I share it not with any sort of judgment for others, but just to offer hope for anyone who is feeling like maybe they can't get to the other side of some really big challenges in their life. And I feel like I have, which is a huge victory. So I'm gonna just share from the heart. I don't generally teach with notes, so it might not be identical to what I shared today, but I'm just gonna go for it. Tina, do you have me featured? Okay, there we go. Okay. So we're talking about emotions, like really big emotions. And obviously the two most, common chronic struggles around emotions that people deal with, I think especially during this pandemic, are depression and anxiety. Just the rates are just skyrocketing, especially among children and teens. And it seems to me that our society's solution to these struggles is usually nothing more than a pill, than a medication. If you watch television, you spend any amount of time watching, what's on the mainstream media, you are constantly fed two things: fear, all day long, because they know you'll keep watching. It's a little bit addicting after a while. And ads for pharmaceuticals. Yep. Every other commercial is for a pharmaceutical. And I don't let my kids watch regular TV for this reason. We don't do commercials, because that constant stream of negativity and low frequency does not serve you well. So there's a tip. First of all, turn off the television programming that is being fed into your mind. It will make all of these struggles worse. So that's my first tip. But my journey with a pill to fix these issues started when I was 16 years old. So I'm 42 now, and I've lived a lot of life. So at the age of 16, I was being raised by my mother. I'm the oldest child of four girls, oldest big sister, no brothers. And my mom was a single mom. She was a teacher working full time. She wasn't getting any child support. So, there really was no money for much of anything other than what we needed to survive. And there was no father figure in my life. And my mom really just wasn't available all that much. And my life was just chaotic, challenging. I was going through a little bit of, some rebellion, not making very good choices as a teen, living a life that I would never want for my own children. And at the time, my mom, who really didn't have very many resources and was doing the best she could, decided that her first approach to dealing with what she called mood swings, so I was dealing with mood swings, that's her term for it, was to put me on birth control. Now, mind you, I didn't have any of the typical issues that kids would or teens would typically get on birth control for, like heavy periods or acne, anything like that. But her solution was birth control for moods, as suggested by our doctor. And so that's what I ended up on. Now, for me, this was probably not a good decision because it just kind of gave me permission to be sexually active. Not a good thing at 16 when I'm already struggling. I was diagnosed with clinical depression at some point. I really dislike when doctors give us labels like this that come from the DSM, because you can take on that label as your identity. And so that's what I did. Birth control didn't really make much of a difference. And I remember being put on a brand new drug back in the 90s for depression. And there were no long-term studies about this drug yet. I don't know if it was even approved for minors, but the drug was called Paxil. It still exists today, but at the time it was brand new. And that's what I was put on. I don't really remember that helping all that much. I remember seeing various therapists and psychiatrists, and my mom was basically like, fix her, fix her. I have forgiven my mother for this. I want to say something that you might need to hear, but there is freedom in forgiving your parents for however they did or did not show up in your life when you were a child. There's freedom in that forgiveness, because when you get to the other side of this, you realize that your parents were just walking out the consequences of their own traumas in their life. Okay. So when you realize that and you're like, okay, well, my mom was really just dealing with XYZ from her own traumas and her own divorce and her own childhood, forgiveness is on the other side of that. So that's where I'm at today. So my mom just wanted me fixed. I eventually ended up on a drug called lithium. How many of you watched the recent Britney Spears testimony? Anyone? She talked about being put on lithium. Lithium is truly only meant for someone with bipolar disorder, which I did not have. I've never had. And it really only made me feel crazy and gain weight. I then ended up with an eating disorder, pretty severe eating disorder for a few years towards my late teens. And ended up actually hospitalizing myself because I was a legal adult at that point. And I had my mother's really good insurance because she was a teacher. So I could get all the medical care I wanted. And I ended up hospitalizing myself for this eating disorder. And they decided that when the part of my treatment protocol would be putting me on a very high dose of Prozac. Prozac was handed out like candy in the 90s. Maybe it still is. But I was on the maximum allowed dose, which was 60 milligrams. And the problem is it actually helped, because a high dose of Prozac like that is actually a mild appetite suppressant, and it stopped the binge cycle for me, right? It also maybe helped with the depression, maybe helped with the anxiety. And as I, was going through this experience, I really ended up believing that I was just broken, that my body was broken, and that I had a deficiency in whatever these medications were giving me to make me feel normal. So that was the identity I took on. I have depression. I need these pills. And these pills make me, function. So I was on and off Prozac for years, on and off. That was when it was first prescribed to me. It was actually off-label usage, which is quite common. I've been on other meds as well for off-label usage, which means it's not really meant for that, but they prescribe it anyway. In my early 20s, I ended up with a chronic pain issue, and I was on disability, and I was given Prozac again for chronic pain, and it helped with that, helped with migraines, all kinds of things they prescribe it for. And ultimately, out of that experience, just decided that I was going to be on Prozac for the rest of my life. And I even told people that Prozac was my miracle drug. That's what I decided. So then I started having children. Obviously, when I was pregnant, I wasn't taking the Prozac. I did go off the Prozac for 2 of my children when I was pregnant. Yes, Jenny mentioned serotonin. That's what I was told. Like, your brain doesn't make enough serotonin, so you need this drug to fix it. But I promise you guys, or my dog just came in the room, sorry. Not one of you was born with a Prozac deficiency, okay? God didn't design you that way. He didn't. So during my 3rd pregnancy, I had 2 kids in my 20s. By my 3rd pregnancy, when I was 30, I remember calling my doctor when I was about 4 months pregnant. This was not a pregnancy that we had planned. I'm going to shut my office door real quick. One second. Okay. And I was a very overwhelmed mama at the time. My husband was traveling almost full time every week. And I had 2 little kids at home. And I was like, I need to get back on the Prozac. And called my doctor and begged, please let me get back on the Prozac. Because what has the media conditioned us to do? There's a line at the end of every pharmaceutical commercial that you've ever seen. What is that line? Ask your doctor. Ask your doctor. See, you guys all know because we've been programmed to do that, literally. When you ask your doctor for a drug, most of the time they just give it to you. Yes, it's marketing. Most of the time they will give you the drug that you ask for because guess what? They've been programmed to do that too. That's all they know. Not once did my doctor ask me how my diet was. Not once. And all these years of being put on meds, right? I was 30 at this point. I've been on meds since I was 16 on and off. No one asked me about my diet. No one asked me about my lifestyle. No one asked me about my past. There was no nutritional suggestions made. No one ran blood work on me. No one checked my thyroid. No one did a hormone panel. I didn't know to ask for those things. Okay, so you don't know what you don't know. No guilt. If you guys don't know that you can ask for those things, no guilt, because you don't know what you don't know, but you can. You can demand those things and you can be in charge of your health. So I stayed on the Prozac all through my pregnancy with that child who's now 12, my son. And that's probably one of my biggest like mom guilt regrets of my life. I'm still working through that one. Okay. I stayed on it after he was born, and 18 months of nursing him, I was still on Prozac. Around that time in my life, this would be a very long story, but I had a huge wake-up call for my family. And I started learning about nutrition. I started getting rid of all the toxic products in my life, all the fragrance, all the hormone disrupting products had to go. I started learning about real nutrition. I finally learned for the first time in my life at the age of 30, the gut-brain connection. Okay, that your gut is your second brain. No one had taught me that. Had no idea. I never took any supplements, by the way, like that whole time. I was never taking supplements. Most of us, I'm in my 40s. I didn't grow up taking anything but a Flintstones vitamin. And I didn't take supplements in my 20s. I take them now every single day without fail, but I just didn't know. So when I finally learned about this, I was still nursing my son. I said, I've got to get off this Prozac. I want to take back control of my life. I no longer want to put my emotions at the mercy of this drug that has just been part of my life for far too long. Another side effect of Prozac, there's many, by the way, that they don't tell you. First of all, a lot of these psychotropic meds have a black box warning on there for teens, meaning it can increase suicidal tendencies. Like, that's not really solving the problem at all, making it worse, right? But first of all, it can affect libido. So like it can damage your marriage and intimacy. That's awful, right? I'm still healing from that. And it affects feelings, like you're just numb. You live in this numb state where you're not really feeling things in their entirety. You're still experiencing life, but I just felt like I was kind of going through the motions for years, just surviving. Yes, it numbs the pain, but also the joy, exactly. I don't feel like I bonded properly with my son when he was born because, numb, those hormones just weren't flowing the way they should. So I was done at 30, and I tapered off my medication. Something I forgot to say earlier today is do not ever stop your meds cold turkey. I am not telling anyone here to do that, okay? I'm not a medical professional. I'm not giving you advice, but never go off meds cold turkey. You have to do it through a doctor, and they need to help you do it, okay? So it's really important. I just want to be really, really clear about that. So I tapered off the Prozac and decided, I was going to supplement, I was going to eat right, and my life radically changed. And then I discovered Young Living a year later, and it changed even more, right? Because then I was like, I have all these new tools to help me. And this whole new world had been opened up to me that I really didn't even know about. All I had done for years was go to my doctor, my family practitioner, my OB. And I had no idea that there was this whole other world out there of holistic practitioners who could help me address mind, body, and spirit, who would help me address the big picture, who would help me heal my gut, who would look at my nutrition and find out what I was missing to actually help my body heal. So all of that was opened up to me through the Young Living community, through friends, through Facebook. I mean, really, social media just brought so many resources into my life. Say what you will about it, it can be a huge blessing as well. So I want to back up a little bit, and I'm just going to share a trigger warning right now. So if you need to mute me, you can do so now. This is your trigger warning. So I mentioned that no one had ever asked me about my past, like these doctors who just write the script, and any doctor will write the script. You don't even have to go to a psychiatrist. Your family doctor will give you antidepressants. 1 in 4 women is on antidepressants in America. Awful. No one ever asked me about my past. And I had been in therapy. I had been in church, and no one said, what happened to you, Alyssa, that might be causing these struggles in your life? So the truth is, I was keeping a secret from everyone around me, including my own mother. And the secret was childhood sexual trauma, was abuse. This was ongoing abuse. This was not a one-time thing. So that was the root. Yes, nutrition was a problem. I was a vegetarian, a very unhealthy vegetarian. I wasn't getting enough healthy fats in my brain, but the real root was the trauma. And by the way, your kids can inherit these traumas that you pass on to them. So I just want to say this. I have done a ton of healing, and I have come out on the other side of this victorious. I don't say I'm a victim. I don't say I'm a survivor. I don't use those words. I'm healed. Okay, because everyone has the opportunity to rewrite their story. Everyone. So I can share that story that's really painful and say, look at me now, and I can help people through that story. And I have so many tools, thanks to Young Living and thanks to this community, that have facilitated that healing, okay? Now, I wanna say this. Today, I take no meds. I believe there's a time and a place for Western meds. There is a time and a place. I'm not judging anyone who takes them. I'm not opposed to them. I was even in the ER a month ago with pneumonia, getting meds because I couldn't breathe, okay? So no judgment, but I was able to stay off of antidepressants since the age of 30. I did have a setback. I had a pretty massive setback about 5 years ago with anxiety. And I believe that it was because when my daughter, my oldest, hit the age that I was when I was being abused, it reopened that scab for me. And it was like, I had to then deal with it. And I'll say this, I was no longer numb. I was no longer numbing the pain with substances, with with meds, and I was actually having to feel all of the feelings, all of the trauma, and really deal with it for the first time in my entire adult life. So that setback was pretty massive. And I did get back on meds just for the anxiety. I was adamant that I would not get back on an antidepressant. So it was just something for anxiety. And I knew it was going to be temporary because I was just in a really rough spot. And this happened even with all the tools at my disposal that I have today, all my oils, this still happened. Okay. So I'm just being really raw and really vulnerable and like, hey guys, even Royal Crown diamonds like have bad days. So that's where I was at. It was then about 3 years ago that I really opened my mind to new healing modalities that I had never truly explored before. And that started with emotional release. So actually like getting the traumas out of my body. So if you're holding on to trauma in your body, little things can trigger you and you don't even know why you're being triggered. So emotion code was the first like book I explored about how to actually facilitate my own healing through emotional release. I started seeing emotion code practitioners. I learned how to do it on myself. I have friends that do it. This was huge for my healing. As a Christian, this can make people a little bit nervous, but I believe this is a gift from the Lord that I was led to within the Young Living community, truly. So that's one resource I want to share. I have a few more books. So if you're writing down notes, here's another good one. The Biology of Belief, Bruce Lipton. I also had my healing facilitated through prayer. It's a big part of my healing. So Born to Be Free is a book I recommend if you need specific prayers to help you be free of these chains. This is a great resource. Let's see. Like I said, emotions become trapped in the body, traumas become trapped in the body, and we need to get them out. Oils can help you do that, by the way. There's other ways too. Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. That's another resource. And then most recently, the holistic psychologist, I found her on Instagram. She just released this book, How to Do the Work. I love this concept of doing the work to facilitate your own healing, because when you're just taking a pill, that's not doing the work. Sometimes it's necessary, of course, but doing the work and actually dealing with your own habits, your own, victim mentality, like this has been huge for me, especially with my mother wounds, right? My anger towards my mother, like she helped me work through that. So I found her on Instagram. She's great. You can follow her. And that helped me as well. And then I recommend any work by Dr. Caroline Leaf. Sorry about my dog. I want to share a few Young Living things that helped me. Obviously, we're all in Young Living here, so I'll share a few things. But my non-negotiable every single day without fail is my 1,000 milligram cinnamon CBD. And I only started doing that consistently within the last 2 years. Like as soon as Young Living launched it on our website, I was like, okay, I'll try it. I've tried CBD before. It didn't really help me. And I tried this and it was a game changer. Okay. I'll just say that. I use so many oils, you guys. This is one of my favorites, Believe. I have a quick recipe to share with you guys, if you don't mind. I'm sorry. I know this is long. I want to share a roll-on that, can you guys see that this roll-on recipe was given to me by Dr. D, Tina. It is incredible. And do not skip any of these ingredients. You need all of them. Okay. So this roller is phenomenal and I highly, highly recommend it. But I use tons of oils. I don't count drops. Usually I do for this, but I use so many oils. I will never be without my oils. They have helped me through so many difficult times. And when I say I use oils for anxiety, sometimes I'm applying them 30 to 50 times a day. And that might sound crazy, but that's better than a panic attack for me, because I've had enough panic attacks. I don't need any more of those in my life. So be generous with your oils. Like, don't be afraid to really, really use them and get the most from them. frequency and consistency is important. What else can I share? I think the other people are going to share some supplements that would be helpful through Young Living as well, further in the call. But I want to wrap up with one more quick story before I pass the baton over, and it's about my son. So my son, the baby I was pregnant with when I was on Prozac, last year during the pandemic, he developed debilitating anxiety. To the point of where we could not leave the house with him. And there's a name for that. It's called agoraphobia. And at first, I was beating myself up for this, and I thought that it might be learned behavior, that he's watched me struggle with anxiety and panic attacks for so many years that he must have just learned it from me. And that wasn't it. So kids and anxiety, it's not just about emotions, but it can be a physical issue as well. Most doctors won't even know to say that to you. So here was my breaking point for him. I reached back out to a therapist that we had been working with before the shutdown. And I told him what was going on with my son and how bad it was. And he said, "I'm sorry, I really don't think I can help you anymore, but I would strongly suggest a referral to this pediatric psychiatrist." And I said, no, that is not going to be my son's path. Because here's the thing, and I'm not saying this with any judgment, but when you put a child on a psychotropic medication, it is a very slippery slope, very, very slippery slope, because they will believe that they are broken and that they need this medication for the rest of their life. So once you get a kid on them, it is very, very hard to get them off and get them off permanently. So that was not going to be my son's path. I'm like, no, I'm breaking this chain here, and we're not doing that. So long story short, we figured out that my son has a condition called PANS, also known as PANDAS. That's an acronym, PANS, PANDAS. What that is, it is a pathogen. He got sick, he had a fever, and his behavior radically changed almost overnight. So if you're dealing with a child with severe anxiety that suddenly comes out of nowhere, please research PANS, PANDAS, because Western medicine, they don't even really acknowledge it. But there are practitioners who can help you through that. So now we're dealing with my son and healing his gut. We've removed gluten. I've been gluten-free for 10 years, by the way. Highly recommend it. For that gut-brain connection, reducing inflammation is key. And so we've changed his diet. We've added new supplements. We're doing lots of things. He's come a long way. And I can't say that he is fully healed yet, but I do declare that he is going to. So we will get there. I know that his healing is possible, just like my healing is possible. I still have hard days. Okay. I still have hard days. I still have anxiety sometimes, but I have the tools to deal with them. And I have to say, so much of that is thanks to Young Living and the community that I'm in. As far as depression, I will say this: when you are given a purpose that you didn't know you had before, that is also an amazing antidote for depression. And Young Living did that for me. Right? I know this is my purpose. I know I'm walking in my purpose to help people in so many ways through Young Living, and I'm so incredibly grateful for it. And for all of these ladies that facilitate these calls, they're part of the community that lifts me up, prays for me, and is there for me as well. So that's my story, and thank you for listening, and love you guys. Who's next, Tina?
Teresa's getting geared up right now. We love you too, Alyssa.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name's Teresa, and I'm going to take off from where Alyssa was sharing. So here's like just a screen or like an image of different things that she mentioned.
Teresa, you're frozen for me.
Yeah, she's frozen for me too.
And then I share.
Me too.
I
If everybody could just stay muted for right now, we're going to have a time for sharing afterwards. Just having a little technical issue right now. I'm going to share my screen and pull up what Teresa was going to share. And then when she comes back, she can talk about what she was going to share. Teresa, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, let me share my screen if you want me to. It seems to freeze when you're sharing yours. Is that okay with you? You guys do have permission to screenshot. Let me go to this one. Teresa, can you hear us?
Yep. My computer's bugged.
I think so too. If you want to go ahead and walk us through these slides, I will change the slides as needed.
Awesome. Thank you. See, it's all the things that I Google.
Teamwork.
Yes, teamwork makes the dream work. So, with doing research on this, because my son was on the verge of this he was a sophomore. So I was looking into hormones, doing the Zyto on him, working with our chiro and naturopath on this. One of the things that I discovered was with individuals with facing such diagnosis or conditions, as supporting that gut-brain theory, there are deficiencies in certain nutrients that have been found to be common among individuals going through this. So this table, what I just did was that put these deficiencies together and then map them out according to the supplements that we have. So for vitamin B12, yes, it's vitamin B12, C, D, L-theanine, and turmeric, and we have them in Balance Complete, Agile Ease, Illuminize, and Mindwise. Okay, the one that I was going to share was already had the names of these. And then Alyssa mentioned this too, Super B. So just checking them off, feel free to screen cap these and then just zoom them out and zoom them in so you can read the labels of the supplements. And then multigreens that contains vitamin D, magnesium, amino acids, iron, zinc, and iodine. Now, for those who are also experiencing, when we're going through such emotional challenges, sleep is a difficulty, right? So magnesium is one of those nutrients that actually we find deficient for those who are having troubles with sleep as well. So we also have that in Super Cal, if you want to check out Mega Cal, because it also has a good amount of magnesium in it. Then of course we have Ninja, right? So
my website because of the bundle you purchased. If
somebody's teaching along with me. Yay. So, but this is of course on top of and pretty much assuming that we have our basics in there. What are our basics? It's like the master formula. Master formula was formulated to have our recommended daily values of certain vitamins and nutrients. Now you can get a blood test, and I highly recommend this so that you can see where you're deficient in. Just yesterday we recommended like vitamin D deficiency, and we are being cooked up at 15, 16, 17, 18 months, right? You can expect our vitamin D levels to be low. Studies are also showing that sunscreen or sunblock is impairing our ability to absorb the very, very valuable vitamin D. So if you have a choice of sunscreen, right, choose the ones that have no nanoparticles, because then that will help the body absorb our vitamin D as well. Now, Tina, did you want? Yes, our vitamin D is amazing. I can take 4 of those at a time. And my chiropractor liked it when I told her about it. So it's one of those things that I am dying to have back in stock if you guys don't beat us to it. But there are also other sources of vitamin D, right? So get out in the sun, because movement, right? Movement, exercise, do it under the sun, and you're hitting 2 birds with one stone, because you're getting those endorphins increasing those and helping balance our hormones that way, the happy hormones, as well as vitamin D absorption. I don't know, Tita, did you want me to go into emotion code or?
I can take it from here.
Okay,
We're going
all
to do
right,
a
so
whole
back to you,
lesson on
Jan.
the emotion code.
Okay,
Thank you,
that's
sweetie.
it. Thank you.
Okay, so I am going to pin myself up here. I am a certified natural health professional, CNHP. This little letters, you know, that tells me I went through a class for 10 months at Trinity, and I pulled out some of our notes on emotions because I found some stats that I found that I feel like are worth mentioning, because sometimes we don't realize how big of a problem we're dealing with and how much we need all of these tools. And so these statistics were from 2015. So you can imagine after a year like 2020, how exponentially different these stats would be. So 1 in 4 adults, which is approximately 61 million Americans, suffer from mental illness. 1 in 10 adolescents experiences a period of major depression. 1 in 25 Americans live with a serious mental illness, such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or a major depression. And then suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. We have in 2015, there were an average of 41,000 deaths per year, which is more than double the rate of homicides. And you can multiply that 41,000 by 25 to come up with the suicide attempts, because the actual successes are only 1/25 of the ones that were attempted. So you can tell that we have a problem, right? And this is worldwide. This is not just America, but those stats are from the US, from the country, right? So my personal story, and I'm not going to go into it, but I just want to encourage you about gut health. And we've mentioned it a couple of times. Alyssa having the intuition to pull herself off of gluten, that's huge. And I believe that so much of what we're going through as a nation is directly coming from a lot of the food that we're eating. It's the food we're eating, along with the toxins that we are introducing, and then that pill for every ill mentality. Those things have just compounded, and we get to a place where there's just, the pills aren't working, or we're hopeless, and many people just give up. And so I know you're not here by accident. I know that you're here on purpose. And, thankful for people like Alyssa that are brave and sharing their story. And we have another person sharing their story tonight too. But that bravery in sharing their story. I'm grateful for the fibromyalgia diagnosis that I had in 2012, because it was through that I woke up and started really looking at labels, really looking at the gut health. And I know in the chat somebody had mentioned most of your serotonin is made in the gut, and it's true. So I also want to invite you guys, and Teresa, I don't know if you have that link, or Alyssa, I can grab it once our next speaker starts talking. But starting in September, right after Labor Day, we're going to be going through a community group of doing a fall colon cleanse. Because not only do we want to get rid of all this stuff that's stuck in us, the word emotion, by the way, is based in Latin, and the word means to move out. So Alyssa had mentioned that she realized there was a root, there was an injury, there was an emotional root to what was some of the things that she was dealing with. We all have some kind of trauma in our life. Some of us, it's little traumas, sometimes it's big traumas. But those traumas start compounding. And I want to share with you another graphic that I just screenshot. I grabbed a picture of this chart from my studies at Trinity. You have emotional links to your physical body. And if you want to screenshot this, you can. There's a lot more emotions than just this short list. But those emotions become housed in certain organs, and then you have certain symptoms that are related directly to those emotions. So let's say you've got restless legs. You may be dealing with resentment or weakness in the gallbladder that you may need to strengthen. So when you start really unpacking this stuff and studying it and applying it to yourself, you may need different supplements than what Teresa had mentioned. For me, I needed lots of Life 9. I at one time had been taking Life 9 in the morning and in the evening. It's a little off label, but that's what my practitioner told me to do. And then of course, digestive enzymes. So going back to that root word emotion, that means to move out. So how are we going to move out the emotions if we're not acknowledging them and we're not unpacking them and going through the hard work? I love those resources that Alyssa had pulled up. So definitely do this work. You are worth it. Your story is worth it. And your story, when you tell it along the way, may actually save many lives. And I want to show you this too. Surround yourself with words that are going to keep you on track. Okay, so I found this particular notebook. It's just a college ruled notebook. It's school supply season, right? And it says, find joy in the journey. This is a journal. You can grab any notebook and journal along the way. I encourage all of the people I work with to journal, because there will be hard days. And there's those hard days are going to be where you think, I'm not making any progress. But you go back into your journal and you start reading some of the previous entries and you realize how far you've come. We're not where we want to be, but we're not where we used to be. And we're continuing. This is why we call it a journey. I know some people are just, like, why do y'all call it a journey? It's because we're still going through it along with you. Some of us just got here a little sooner than others, but it's worth going through. Okay. So as you process the moving out, join us in September. We're going to be doing this fall colon cleanse. Wintertime is where we need our immunity the most. And not only is your emotional gut-brain connection really, really strong in the gut, but so is your immunity. And so if you're dealing with an impacted colon and you're not moving things out physically, you're holding on to undigested food, then that can set your body into all kinds of responses, inflammation, but this emotional patterning that you might be experiencing, as well as it could be keeping you sick all the time. If you're one that's always having a runny nose or, phlegm or something in your chest or everything that goes around you seem to get, then join us on this fall colon cleanse. And we're going to give you a Google form for you to fill out, and we'll be in touch. There's already a couple of hundred people that are wanting to do this. We just still haven't decided if we're going to do it on a Google, like a Facebook group, or if we're going to do a Telegram group or whatever, but we will be in touch. So you definitely want to fill out that form and I'll get that for you. But right now I want to turn the call over to my good friend, Sherry Von Lobstein. Sherry and I have spent lots of time together because of Young Living. I would not have met her without Young Living. And I want to just, she's here to talk to us about her anxiety. And you guys are going to want to hear her and take notes. So Sherry, can you unmute and let me pin you up?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Yes. So, okay, guys, here's the deal. I had no idea I was going to be sharing this until about 20, maybe 30 minutes ago. So this is raw, just telling you the truth. It's funny because I didn't really think that I had a story to tell, if you will. But I guess Tina sat with me through many of my anxious episodes. She's a wonderful friend to have on hand when that happens. So if I think about it, my anxiety started when I was a kid. So when I really don't know how old I was. I would guess around 5 or 6. My brother and I were somewhere and my mom left our house to come pick us up. And when we came home, we were walking up the steps to the back porch and she turned us around. We got back in the car and I didn't really understand what was going on, but somebody had broken into our house while she was gone. And when she came home, we now, not at the moment, but then we later realized that they were actually still in the house when we came back. They probably didn't expect her to just be gone for 10 minutes. So I remember coming into our house and just everything being in disarray. They had pulled out the just drawers and dumped them. Just everything was a mess. Even my own room, everything just kind of gone like this. So honestly, I think that's where my anxiety began. It was awful. So I was always afraid my whole life that somebody was going to come break in our house. Even at 30, I was afraid that somebody would come break into my house. So there did come a point where I had to stop watching the news. because a lot of people would tell me how irrational my fear was, that, you've been afraid for 20 years and it's never happened. Why are you still afraid or whatever? And I'd be like, do you watch the news? That kind of stuff happens all the time. So I had to kind of turn that off. So if you struggle with anxiety, I highly suggest that you stop watching the news, because the truth is there is nothing on there that's happy or positive. Like, it's all scary, right? Carjackings, murderers, home invasions, like everything, nothing is happy. So I stopped watching the news a long time ago. That has definitely helped. So what's interesting about my anxiety is that, so when I got married, my husband traveled. So because you're probably like, oh, as an adult, you're still worried about somebody breaking into your house. Well, so my husband traveled. So it would be me home alone, and we have 4 kids. So I'm home with these 4 babies. And you guys, like, I have a mind that just goes, right? And so I had a plan for everything. I would leave the lights on so I could watch the shadows, like all the things. I slept with a baseball bat, wasp spray next to my bed that shoots 20 feet. I would think about, how would I get all my kids? How would I deal with it? Well, when my husband stopped traveling and stayed home, I don't really have that fear anymore. But what happened is a new fear took over from the old fear. So if you experience anxiety at all, maybe you can relate to this, that like, it's just one thing being replaced by the other. So now the fear that I have is health related, that something dreadful is going to happen to me. And so I do still struggle with this. This is why I didn't feel like I really had a story to tell, because it's not like I'm going to sit here and tell you the answer to all the problems, but I do feel like I have kind of a handle on it. And so I want to share some of my strategies. Also, if you struggle with anxiety or panic, there are a few things that I'm going to tell you that you probably already know, but when I tell you these, then you know that I'm like on the couch with you, so to speak. So the first thing to me is that anxiety is a very lonely feeling. You can be in a stadium. I have sat in a stadium with 17,000 other people around me, and I feel like I'm the only person in the arena, right? I had major anxiety when we were in Florida for our little beach retreat, and I'm sitting in a room with 20 some women, and I just felt all alone, and there's just nothing anybody can do about that feeling. The other thing about anxiety is that logic goes out the window. So if you're the person sitting opposite of someone who is in the midst of an anxiety attack, you trying to walk them down a logical path it's not going to work. Their mind is doing this, and they don't even hear you, nor do they really want to. And they think that yes, but. And the third thing is that no one can help you but yourself. So I have been surrounded by people, my husband wants to help me, Tina wants to help me, like people want to help me. But the truth is, the only person that can really help me out of this is me. And that's not to say, listening to what you guys have all been talking about, mentioning in the chat, whatever, that yes, you can go to a doctor and other things, but ultimately for me, working my way out of it has to come with me, even if that means I go to the doctor, but like, I have to do it. You can't make somebody do it. So the things that have really made a shift for me, one is the realization that fear is not from God. Fear is not from the Lord. So if God didn't give us a spirit of fear, where does the spirit of fear come from? And that has to come from Satan or the devil, however you want to characterize him. And so I have started to kind of like look at my anxiety and recognize it for what it is. And it is stealing. It's a joy stealer. It steals the joy from me. And if hindsight's always 2020. So whenever I've had like an episode of major stress and anxiety, once I'm kind of past it and can look back at it rationally, that's only when the rationale and logic can come in, is when it's over. I realized that each and every time that a major panic episode comes up, it's like right when I have something good that's about to happen or that I should be enjoying something. And so I have started to realize that this is definitely a tool of Satan. And so I believe we all have weaknesses and everyone's is different, right? That's why there are people who struggle with, okay, this is just my opinion. Okay. So take it for what it's worth. I don't want to offend anybody here, but like I look at it and I see some people struggle with things like alcohol or gambling or whatever. I think we all have a different struggle. And I believe that it is from the enemy. I think that we each have a different weakness and he capitalizes on that. And for me personally, I feel like it's fear and anxiety. And so anytime I'm about to do something that I feel like God has for me, Satan wants to come in and be like, oh, but look over here. Don't pay attention to that. Look over here at this really scary thing. And I can get super wrapped up in it. And I don't like that. So here are my tips, the things that get me through it. My favorite oil for anxiety is grounding. This is an oil, like sometimes I go out of town maybe and I'm happy to be where I am. I'm not unhappy. I'm not homesick, but I have this like icky feeling like right here that I just am not settled and I just kind of want to be home because that's where it might be safe. When I use grounding, like 10, 15 minutes later, I'm like, oh, I feel like perfectly fine. This is awesome. So I love grounding for that. I also love to use the CBD calm roller. And then I like to inhale truly any emotional oil. Like if you don't have grounding, like just grab anything. Frankincense, inner child, hope is a great one. Any emotional oil that you have, grab it. And so the way that I use it personally, I know that you can put it on you and you can dump it on you and those things are helpful, but you guys, all of your senses, like touch, right? Eyes, we touch something and it has to be relayed to the brain and then back to the touch, right? Eyes, see, relayed. But your sense of smell, it's not going to the brain and relaying back, like it's straight to the brain. Okay. So when you are smelling, you're going straight to the brain. You're going right to the limbic system of the brain. And the limbic system is that emotional control center that helps you with like your breath rate and your heart rate and your blood pressure and that like sense of fight or flight that we get when we're having anxiety. So yes, you can dump it on you, but don't forget to just smell the oil, right? So just putting it in your hand, y'all, this is empty. I mean, I use my grounding. So do this. And then some people do this, but I always have to leave myself a little place to breathe. So I do this and, you can take like 1, 2, 3 deep breaths, but honestly, I just kind of sit like this. And if you're out somewhere and you don't want to sit like this because you're embarrassed, put it on the back of your hand and sit like this, right? No one really knows what you're doing. You can just kind of sit like this and you can smell it and just let the oil take over. Okay. So, grounding, CBD calm, valor, tree oils, frankincense. Okay. So the next trick that I have is, and I don't have this with me, so we're going to pretend like this is tranquil, but tranquil or vetiver, both of them work well, but right on the temples. And this is for racing thoughts, right? So when I'm in the midst of like the anxiety and the panic, my mind, it already goes a million miles an hour. Ask my husband. I'm always like, do you know how many thoughts I had in that last 5 minutes? And I roll them all out and he'll be like, oh my gosh. Like, I'm like, yeah, I know. Right. So when I'm having an anxiety attack, man, it is like, whoo, I mean, you cannot keep up. You cannot keep up. So tranquil on the temples. And vetiver, again, you need to smell them, but like put them on. And then I don't know if you guys have ever tried this, but have you ever tried Stress Away under your tongue? Bless Barry Addy. You're hilarious. Yes, bless him. Okay. So Stress Away under your tongue, you guys, if you want to have a blissful moment, I challenge all of you to try this tonight. Put 2 or 3 drops of Stress Away under your tongue. I know it's not vitality oil, but I promise you I've done it. I'm here to tell you that I'm still alive. So Stress Away under your tongue, like 3 drops, hold it under there for a while, drink some Ningxia water afterwards. I'm telling you, it is bliss. It is crazy. Okay. CBD obviously. And then a supplement that has been very helpful for me is 5-HTP. So 5-HTP is what they call an adaptogenic herb, right? And so I think it's an herb. Our oils are adaptogenic as well. And adaptogenic means that, like, no matter, like, think about Digest, whether you're constipated or whether you have the runs, it knows what to do, right? So that's adaptogenic. It knows how to bring you into balance. And so 5-HTP is in our Unwind kids supplement. And listen, I mean, I'm not opposed to taking 2 of them, right? They're made for kids. So 1 for kids, 2 for grownups. I'm just saying that's what I would do. 5-HTP is very calming. And I will tell you, one time I had some 5-HTP and I went to go get it. Or no, I went to go get Detoxime out of I keep my supplements in a little, I don't know how to explain it and I can't go get it, but that I keep it in Lacantina Square. And so I went to go get my Detoxime, but I was accidentally in my husband's. And I think I took like 8 of them, which, I'm pretty generous with the Detoxime. And I'm like, they kind of feel a little bigger, and like, it kind of felt a little bigger in my mouth. And you would think that at some point I would have stopped, but I didn't. And I took them all. And then I was like, oh my gosh, that was at 5-HTP. So I took like 8 of them. And again, I'm still here. Don't do that. Do not do that. I am still here to tell you about it, but I'm just saying, like, 5-HTP, gosh, that was a great night, right? Ooh, Zoom. Okay. So the only other things that I have to tell you are, and this has to do with my faith, because the oils are a great tool, but I just don't feel like alone that they're everything for me. I pray, I listen to praise and worship music. Listening to praise and worship music is a really good thing because you want to replace your thought. So you can only think about one thing at a time. I mean, I know I can have lots of thoughts, but your mind is focusing on one thing. And I'm going to tell you about something else, but let me just give you an example. So red elephant, red elephant, red elephant, red elephant, red elephant, red elephant. What are you thinking about? Red elephant, right? And if I say pink dog, you're like, pink dog. Okay, now you're not thinking about red elephant anymore. Do you see? You can replace the thoughts. And so when you have those things going through your mind, you have to replace them with something else. So like listening to praise and worship helps me to do that. Evox is an amazing tool. Like Alyssa talked about emotion code. I don't know that it's similar, but Evox is a tool through Zyto. Dr. D does it. And it gives you, I don't want to call it instant freedom, but like it is an amazing tool. And it works quickly, shall we say. And then the other thing, and I have the links and I'll try to drop them into the chat here, but there are 2 sermons. And actually this one sermon is really the one that, I mean, I've listened to a lot of things and tried to do a lot of things with this, but this one sermon seriously was like a game changer for me. Let's see if I can put it in here at the same time and talk. It is from a pastor. His name is Jimmy Evans, and the sermon is called "I Changed My Mind About Anxiety and Worry." And listening to his sermon and the way he talked about a dream that he had and just the way he explained it, it just showed me that example of, remember I said I was sitting in a stadium and there are all these people, and that happened. Like I'm at a Predators hockey game, which I love. And yet I'm in the midst of so much anxiety that I'm like missing all the things. I just realized that basically Satan was basically sitting next to me in the hockey game, and it was me and him chained together rather than me enjoying my family and enjoying the moment. And so I'm not going to go into the whole thing because you can watch the sermon for yourself, but anytime it starts to creep back in, I go right back to that sermon. He has another one about I changed my mind about fear. That's another one. But both of those were really helpful for me. And the only other thing I want to say, first of all, thank you for listening. But I feel like you're never over it. Like you just learn how to manage it. And so that's where I was like, I don't really have a story to tell because I haven't really I don't feel like I have control over it. Right. I just had a major panic attack in March. So But then I look at it and I'm like, but how many panic attacks did you used to have? And how many panic attacks do you have now that you have found that sermon and you have these tools in Young Living to like take care of it? And the answer is it's gone way down. And so, I just really want to encourage you to not feel down if you are using these tools and you have kind of a step back, because we're all going to have that. Like Alyssa said, something can trigger it. Like, I love the way she said, rip the scab off. Like, I feel like it's the wound that's going to always be there. And we just have to learn how to protect it as best we can. But it's okay if you have a minor setback, and just remember that you have the tools, that you have probably trusted friends around you that can help you walk through it, and that who thankfully love me anyway. Like, I mean, seriously, my two majorest panic attacks, Tina has been there for it. Like my two majorest. I don't remember what my blood pressure was that time in Utah, but y'all, it was pretty high. Like, probably go to the ER high. And, you know, she just like is super calm. And I mean, she still loves me and she will still go out of town with me. And I appreciate that. So anyway, thanks for, I guess, letting me share.
Sherry, thank you so much. I don't think it was an accident that we just, saw you in the organization chat and I called you and said, you're in that chat. Are you supposed to speak tonight? She's like, no, but yes, you were. You were supposed to be here and supposed to speak. And, I just want to toot her horn a minute, because not only is she a diamond with Young Living, but she's a CNHP as well. She's a certified natural health professional. So she's constantly educating herself and bettering herself and learning about the tools. And so I just am so proud of you, Sherry. So thank you. And you're such a gift to everyone on your team and all of us that do these calls. So thanks for jumping in. Okay, so I know we went over time, and I know that no, you're good. It's not your fault. Don't apologize, Sherry. I saw that. We just had some technical difficulties. And so I'm going to keep rolling, because I've had a private message from somebody that said, can I share? And I said, yes. And I don't want to not have her share. So Jenny Quinley, are you still on the call, and can you unmute?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. And I look like I'm at summer camp and about to tell a ghost story because I'm outside.
Hey, that's like the fireside chat, right?
Well, my family was so loud inside. I was trying to make dinner, and at one point I was cutting steak while I was trying to participate. I was like, this is crazy. I'm going to go outside. So first of all, I want to say thank you for your shirt, because it says love them anyway. And I feel like that shirt is probably going to be intended for me after I talk. But and then I want to say thank you to everybody for sharing. Alyssa, I love your story. There's so much goodness and heartbreak in that story. And I remember I met you at my first convention, well, the only convention, and you were so gracious to me and Dawn when we were talking to you. That was like, she doesn't know who I am. And I'm just like, oh my God, I was a nut. So anyway, I just appreciate all of you, and I appreciate being able to share. And I'm going to try to be brief, but I made a comment, and that's kind of why I felt like I wanted to speak up, because I'm this person who, I adore oils. I adore the supplements. I'm trying to build a business of Young Living. I feel like I have my foot in two separate worlds, because I'm also trained as a physician. And Jess, I made a comment when I said not true. But the only reason I said that is because my specialty is emergency medicine. And although Edie and I went to med school together, we took different paths. And so as a physician, I never got any kickbacks for writing pharmaceuticals. I had a completely different interaction than doctors who have interactions with drug reps. So I just wanted to kind of set that straight. That has not been my personal experience, but I know that other physicians have had that experience. And so I just want to kind of clarify, that's why I made that comment. I think anytime we stereotype, anytime we generalize, we hurt people. So I just want to put that out there. So I'm the evil doctor. I'm the evil doctor who, that when people would come, and I did ER for almost 20 years before I've tried to transition to hospice. And I'm still trying to figure out how to bring oils into hospice in a way that's relevant and not insensitive. So that's part of, I think, the journey that God has me on. He had Edie and we reconnected random. Well, it wasn't random. It was a God thing. And so here I am. But I was the evil doctor who, when people would come and just unburden their souls in the ER with all this emotion and all this trauma and all this stuff. And I was like, I'm not equipped to deal with this. Like, I can keep you alive and put tubes in you and help you breathe and all this stuff, but we're never trained adequately to deal with emotional trauma. And I think as a result, we end up with our own variant of PTSD. And I don't want to say anything to like trigger anyone, but just when people yell at you, I mean, we're not talking just frustration yell at you, scream, psychotic screaming at you, when they vomit on you, when they do all kind, when they just, it's a very traumatizing profession, and we're not equipped to deal with it. And then when we have someone else who says to us all this, I mean, I remember an encounter with a patient that I was like, I don't know how you're sitting here in front of me when you tell me what you've gone through, because I don't know how to help you. You know what I mean? And where do you go with that? You go home, and then do you deal with your family and your own suburban struggle? I mean, it's just, that was that hit, I hit a breaking point in the ER where I was like, I can't do this anymore because it's changing me as a person, and I'm becoming very unkind to my family. I would yell at my family because I didn't even have time to go see a therapist to deal with the own empathic storm that I was having. And so, and then couple with that, having 2 kids back to back, I had kids 16 months apart. So I probably had a progesterone deficiency, which is a big driver of postpartum depression, either that or hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's more than likely. And so had I had progestins then, I feel like it would have been a different person. I had migraines. I never had migraines before. A lot of it was eating bad things and not knowing how to tell people about not eating, not following my own advice. So I feel like God has given me a huge gift with oils, but trying to share that with people has been my struggle. But I kind of wanted to speak up and say, not all doctors are bad. And when people beg you for something, you don't want to send them home empty handed, but then if you don't have a relationship with them, you don't have an option. And today we went to the pediatrician for my son's checkup, and he was like, how have you been doing? And I was like, well, yeah, obviously the last time we saw you was pre-pandemic. And this was actually a new pediatrician, but the last time we had been in the office was pre-pandemic. And he said, well, how have you been, emotional health with her? And I said, we've been hanging in there. We've been handling it pretty well. We even laughed at the movie Groundhog Day, haha. And he said, well, this is what he said, and I quote, he's a good doctor, but he said, I have written 4 more fluoxetine and Zoloft this year than I have before. He's a pediatrician. I was like, oh, that's so not the answer. And I was stunned. I didn't even know what to say. And it's our first visit with him. And I didn't want to be like unkind because we're trying to build a relationship. But I was like, that's not the answer. And I've been grateful that our family has been able to weather the storm together and stay intact and have some interaction with friends and family, but it's been really hard for us. One thing I would say is that frankincense is amazing, and and I know there's different ways to use it, but I'm pretty sure I had a transcendental experience when I burned frankincense in the resin burner. I don't know if you've ever done that before, but at one point I had the doors to the bedroom closed, and I was typing and like researching some stuff or whatever on the computer. And my husband opened the door. He was like, what you doing? I was like, burning frankincense. And he was like, are you all right? I was like, oh, I'm really good. Like, go way down. I'm like super good. So when it just fills the room and you breathe it in and it just takes over your entire being, it's just a different experience. So if you haven't ever done it, I'd recommend it. Don't have anything on your calendar. Don't be responsible for anything. You're not impaired. You're just really groovy. I don't know how. And then my other thing is Progestins Plus. It can be really important for women who are hitting perimenopause and they're really coming unglued and they have no idea where to start. It can be an amazing, amazing tool to get you through all of that. Progestins Plus and Endoflex, 100%. Those 2 are just non-negotiable. So I guess that's my story. I think like the scales have fallen from the eyes. I'm not your typical doctor. I'm a little unicorny that way, but like I love I love that everybody has something to share, but we all come from different places. And I think remembering that and loving everybody anyway is like super important. I don't know. I don't know if that helps.
Oh my gosh, it helps so much, Jenny. And I want you to read some of the comments that people are saying, because we want a physician like you. Like, if you are a private practice and you're looking for people to start coming into your practice, we need your digits. Like, put everything in the chat, right? Because I can't tell you how often people message us and they're like, who's a good medical doctor? Who's this? Who's that? And there's so few of you that have had the scales removed and can live in both worlds and pivot back and forth and be the things, that you're a gift. So thank you for being here. Thank you for speaking up and defending the profession, because we need doctors. We need first responders. Yes, we need all of that so much. And I'm always reminded of that. And I hopefully lead well, but we want to get to the being proactive with our health and not reactive. So hopefully 100%. If we are doing the nutrition and the water and the foundations of health and all the things, that we don't have to go in to see a physician. The problem with so much, and I think you could probably agree with this, is that pill for every ill. And so many of us have family members who have struggled and had, a need for a medication, but then side effects, and then let's get another medication, and then, oh, alcohol makes that so much better, and so then you have this hot mess that the mental health industry in America has no idea what to do with. And insurance won't cover it. And most of these people lose their jobs, and they lose their driver's license, and they lose all the things that keep them free, And so we all have to work together. I think it's all about education, don't you, Jenny? I mean, like, we have to love everyone, love them anyway. And
love them where they are, like meet them
where they are, without judgment, for sure.
And removing the stigma, right?
Yes.
The stigma.
Yeah.
By sharing stories like this really goes a long way for people, so they're not living in shame.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We don't have room for shame. So thank you, Jenny. Appreciate that so much.
Well, I'm always open to learning. I appreciate these forums. I still have a lot to go. I think there's always a middle ground for everything, and not everybody's going to come to the same solution. Some people I want all natural. Some people may need a blend. I do think polypharmacy is it's an enormous problem. And then how to do that in a responsible way because we take hospice people off medications and sometimes they get better. I'm like, well, obviously it wasn't all the disease process. It was something else, or if I could put half of my Alzheimer's patients on a keto diet and then just watch them transform. But it's, we're still working within a broken system. And so I think understanding that doctors are working within a broken system, and there's a lot of misperception on both sides of it, on doctors perceiving patients and then patients perceiving doctors. There's got to be a solution in there somewhere. And I think it has to start with just taking the emotion out of it, in the sense that you just go, okay, wait, I need to listen to what this person has to say before I make any judgments myself. And so that was the one thing, like, I always failed on the metrics. I was one of the slower ones in our ER group, because I was like the ER female physician who would listen to the patients, but I would be slow. I mean, unless they were like dying, and then obviously I would be really busy. But I was like, why is that a problem? I mean, I'm still getting people seen. It's just, I'm not as fast as you want me to be, but I will say this to my credit. I had the best malpractice record out of everybody. Like, when I tell people my malpractice record, they're like, that's, so when you listen to people, they'll tell you what's wrong, and you're not going to misdiagnose them, so I don't know.
That's right. No, we definitely need more like you. And I hear the cicadas in the background, so I think you might be close to me, because I have a lot of those in the background too. Where are you from?
I'm in Knoxville, so I'm not far from Edie.
Yeah.
Went to the same med school.
Okay. All right.
Awesome.
I have I have a niece just north of you in school for DO. She's going to be an osteopath. So
Oh,
yeah.
is she at LMU?
Yes, yes.
Oh, Harrogate's
Yeah.
is beautiful
Yeah.
up there. It's gorgeous. God's country.
Well, we
So
will
I
be
don't
in
want to
touch.
take up any more time.
Well, thank you, but we will be in touch with you because I think you could be a great speaker for some of these topics that we're covering. Yeah,
Thank you.
Alyssa's like, yeah.
Yeah, actually, Tina, I just want to comment on a comment, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Carol said she hears that the natural way is more expensive than the quick fix, the pill. And I just want to acknowledge that because it's valid. Like, that's true. That is true. Investing in natural health and wellness and investing in organic foods and supplements is just a sacrifice that not everyone is willing to make. So you have to meet people where they're at and just know not everyone's going to be willing to do it. We live in a quick fix society, Amazon Prime world, and people want that quick fix. And so, yes, I had to get out of that mindset myself. I was a coupon blogger. I don't know if you guys know that part of my story. I was literally a coupon blogger. Like, I would go to CVS and spend as little money as possible on total junk. And my house was full of it. So I had to get out of that mindset of like, hey, it's okay to actually spend some money on my body because I'm worth it. So that's just one last tip I'll close with.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And we could argue that if we could get our insurance companies to actually cover some of this proactive stuff, then that would be
nice.
Fabulous. Yeah. But in the meantime, we just we use I think it's a God thing. I think you would agree, most of you, that if he brings you to it, he'll bring you through it. And when we joined Young Living, I told my husband I'm not doing this business opportunity, and I love people and I loved sharing what I was learning, and the paychecks kept coming, and I've never paid for my product out of my own pocket after my original starter kit. And Alyssa's nodding. So if you're finding yourself at a place that I don't know how I'm going to afford this, then allow people into your journey, because you may be just like us and end up with this paycheck that covers all of it for you. So allow those blessings to flow. Okay. All right. So we're going to cut it off and call it a night, but we want to see you guys. We'll be back on Thursday, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. Central. We're going to be covering kind of an immunity 201 type topic. Typically you think of thieves, but we're going to break it up into some other oils that you might not think about. And we're going to cover the Golden Touch Kit and oils like Immu Power and stuff like that. So same Zoom link, same time, 1 p.m., 7 p.m. Central Time. So do the math in your time zone, and we'll see you guys there. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.